Welcome to Into the Cypher State, everyone, the premier public broadcast of Galactica Network. My handle is citizen42.gala within the Cypher State. You can always call me Dave. And today I'm joined by my regular co-host Cosmos Hoss and some amazing guests. So before we get on to everyone, I just want to do a very quick disclaimer as always. It's very important to remember that myself, Hoss, any team members that join up on the panel, we are your guides to navigating the Cypher State, but we are not your financial advisors. Our guests' opinions are also very much their own, and nothing said in this space constitutes financial or investment advice. Now we have that out of the way, let's go around the table. Firstly, with my best man, Hoss. How you doing, mate? It's been a good while since last week.
Doing well. It's like you're reading the Miranda rights to everyone, you know? It's not financial advice anytime we say anything, you know? If we knew everything, then maybe we wouldn't even be in this space right now because, you know, we're getting old. But anyways, doing well. I'm excited to be here. Excited to, speak to Arai Chain and Ontology and John and you. Good vibes and looking forward to today's space.
Hell yeah, man. And, you know, it's financial advice from us is it wouldn't be intelligent. You're right. It would just be a complete show. How are you doing, Humpty, behind the Ontology account? It's really good to have you up, my friend. How you doing?
Yeah, doing pretty good. Thank you so much for the invitation to come on up. I know I recently hosted a space and think that might have caught y'all's attention. But yeah, this is something I do pretty regularly too. I host spaces through different accounts, Ontology being one of them. And yeah, the space of decentralized data is, you know, by the name Data Dude, certainly something that is incredibly important to me and something that I've been working in for several years now. So yeah, excited to be up here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
You are more than welcome, man. We're so happy to have you up, dude. And we have Tyree from Arai Chain. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm always good. Just another day in the life, man. So hi, everybody. My name is Tyree Robinson. I'm the head of ecosystem at Arai Chain Foundation. Super excited to be up here. As always, these are my favorite spaces with Galactica. So, you know, I'm looking forward to the conversation today and diving into something I'm passionate about.
That's the way, man. Thank you for the kind words. Okay, we also have, last but not least, my best man from the BD team on Galactica Network, the main man himself, John Reynolds. How are you, John?
Hey, guys. Yeah, doing well. Was kind of excited about seeing the potential resolution of the grayscale stuff today with the ETF decision and all that. But unfortunately, that has not happened. So just another day longer in what feels like 10 years of waiting. But yeah, excited to chat with Arai Chain and Ontology. Lots of interesting stuff going on in the world around data. A lot of people trying to get your data. A lot of people trying to protect your data. A lot of people just producing a ton of data without even knowing it. So excited for the conversation.
Yes, sir. Me too. Okay, guys, please, if you're listening and you've only just joined, make sure you jump down to that bottom right-hand button, give us a like and a retweet on the space. We'd really appreciate it. If you have any questions during, you can give us a comment. If you want to come up and join us and speak, please request. We're happy to have you. In addition, I've also pinned to the top our Cypher State campaign for Galactica Network. For anyone who's not aware, we are an L1 protocol. We're pretty much brand new as far as blockchains go. We've only just entered our DevNet stage. There's a lot of opportunities to earn rewards, earn NFTs, earn all sorts of good stuff, just for social contributions, no money involved. We just want your contributions in exchange for our reward until we get further on in the whole process. We're attempting to bring basically society on chain. It's a huge goal. It's a massive undertaking. It's an incredibly technical protocol, which we've spent like the last 2 years basically writing an awful lot and producing a lot of papers, that kind of thing. But we are now ready to build. We are now ready to produce, and we're now ready to present Galactica Network to the world. So here we are, hosting spaces and trying to get some attention, just trying to get people to understand us and what we're building. Right then, guys. So let's get on with the space. We've got a lot to get through. We've got some awesome guests, so let's do it. As always, we're going to begin our journey into the Cypher State with this week's news. So first things first, as we've just kind of alluded to in the intro there, we've got some ETF news. The first piece of ETF news I want to go with is the positive one, is a European Bitcoin ETF has listed in Amsterdam. The bad side is that across the pond in the US, the SEC has decided to postpone all Bitcoin ETF applications until early 2024 at the earliest. It's just a completely different set of like ideals and people in charge of these places. Jesus. So London-based firm Jacoby has won approval for a fund in October of 2021 for this European fund. And they plan to list it in 2022. However, they decided to delay it, I imagine, due to the market at the time. But they are now listed on Amsterdam's Euronext exchange under the ticker Bitcoin. And again, like the Yanks, the US, they're just postponing everything. So what do we think, guys? What's the? I'll go with Hoss first, as you are a resident US guy. Please.
I just think it's inevitable. Do I know a time frame on when that will happen? No, but I just know that Larry Fink gets what Larry Fink wants. I mean, he literally has they're over $10 trillion of management under, funds under management. It's worth them more, basically every country except for, like, I don't know, maybe America and maybe China or so, of how many assets they have. So whatever he wants, he's going to get. He's been pushing for it for quite a while now. And, BlackRock has their hands in legitimately everything. So they're going to get it. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I know I seen something about Gary Gensler kind of being ousted. So I think it's Hester Pence, or I can't remember the name. But anyhow, they're going to probably
Pierce,
have a new administration. Yeah, that's it. Pierce. So I think, and she seems to be more crypto friendly. I think she helped with some things with like XRP and things of that nature. So yeah, like obviously Gensler is basically anti-crypto, and he's just throwing a hissy fit, in my opinion. So I think it'll be a matter of time until maybe he's out of there and Larry gets what he wants, and then we can keep moving forward. But it's nice to see.
It kind of stinks of desperation, right? It kind of stinks of desperation.
It's like he's like almost like a little child, and if you have a brother or sister and you did something bad, but you're like, well, remember the time she did this or he did that? It's like you don't want to just take responsibility. He's done nothing to move the space forward, to be honest with you. Everything he's done has not worked, and the things that he thought were okay, like FTX and all this other things, we all found out like how that went and how, bad that was. And it's just, like I said, he's just kind of putting his last hurrah, but it's not going to work. And like I said, Larry's going to get what he wants, and he wants Bitcoin ETF. So it is what it is.
Hell yeah. Hurrah, man. So Humpty, what do you think on this one, man, of this massive kind of dichotomy between the European stance on this stuff and the US? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I personally try to focus just on the tech, but when it comes to regulation, I guess that's something that definitely impacts many of us here in the States, and it's interesting, right? Because I've always thought that the U.S. led kind of the way that the rest of the world would. I don't want to use the word imitate, but certainly I think it's a leader when it comes to kind of some of these the regulatory environment, and to hear that there are other countries that are leading the way and kind of pioneering in the space, to me it just kind of, it's a bit mind-boggling. But at the same time, it just also reminds me of how silly it's been over the last couple of months and years in terms of regulation and some of the oversight, and maybe even to some degree some of the corruption that's happening. And so I also think it's a matter of if, not, or a matter of when, not if, excuse me, in terms of when that's going to happen. I have read a few things in terms of, kind of some of the things that potentially are harbingers of something good in the future. I think one of the things here in the United States that we've seen over the past couple of weeks and maybe over the past couple of months is the stablecoin market is starting to change a little bit here in the U.S. We're starting to see some institutional players kind of join the fray, and I think that bodes well because we are seeing, I think, more maturity enter the space, and with that, I think a level of adoption that none of us here who are building, have been building for the last couple of years, I think, could be able to achieve in such a short amount of time. So, yeah, also a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, I think that dovetails really nicely into the other main news story of the PayPal USD. I mean, that's absolutely a game changer. 450 million users. They have full regulatory approval, you'd assume, before they do that sort of stuff. With the trade off of freezing and wiping assets, someone was going to do this. I'd rather have someone like PayPal than an international offshore company like Terra Luna. But yeah, excited to chat more about the PayPal news.
Well, that's the whole thing with this, isn't it? Like it's what we're going for in the decentralized and the centralized spaces. It's trust. At the end of the day, it's just trust. And, a lot of people trust PayPal, and, that's fine. And an awful lot of people are going to get on board it that way. So yeah, as John alluded to, PayPal has actually decided to roll out that last week they announced their Pi USD, their stablecoin, and some of their infrastructure going on there. This week they've announced, well, not announced, but they've actually found in their terms and conditions a new section on a new cryptocurrencies hub for select users. So this is essentially, the mechanism by which they'll actually do the trading, I guess. So you'll be able to sell your cryptocurrencies and pay for purchases via PayPal. Absolutely epic, absolutely excellent. I'm not entirely sure exactly how many people will be using this straight off the bat. I imagine that this is more of one of those things where they build it in this kind of like market lull, and then at the time when we start like getting a bit more interest in crypto again, like when we start getting like positive news stories back in the press, then anyone who is not currently within the crypto space can actually onboard very quickly and very easily using their existing PayPal account, and that is enormous as far as I'm concerned for whatever comes next in the market.
Yeah.
Tyree, we haven't heard from you, man. Sorry, please. If we can go over Tyree first, and then John.
Yeah, so I'm not going to rewind too much, but all I want to say is about the ETF situation that you know we're playing right into their hands, guys. They want us to act like TradFi bros, right? Like what Galactica is doing, what a Chain is doing, even what Ontology is doing. It doesn't have to do with capital markets directly, right? We add more value than this trading capital markets game that is very much this top-down capitalism that has been pushed on us our entire lives. So, you know, without sort of getting too deep into my feelings on it, I do want to highlight that distributed ledger technology and distributed capitalism are two different things. Distributed capitalism being what could be in this space where your end user is owning and dictating the products that they want to use directly as consumers, a really consumer driven economy that leads to less waste and more efficiency in the markets. So I hope to see less top-down capitalism, but with moves like this ETF situation and banks getting more into tokenization and all of these different things, I think that it just becomes an extension of this toxic form of capitalism that we already have in the Western world, and I don't love it. So, get excited about it because your bags are going to pump, but from my stance, I'm not hyped on it. Now, on the PayPal front, I really love what's going on, and I don't love it necessarily because of the ability to onboard, users into the space. I think that that's definitely a great benefit. But what this ends up really being is a great highlight of the value of blockchain for a traditional company, meaning that PayPal was already dealing with virtual dollars on their platform. You put your money into your PayPal account, and it basically disappears into their bank accounts until the day you take it out, and your number exists on a screen, and that's it. And maybe it disappears. Maybe they take your money, and you can't track it and see where it's gone. You can't see that they've burned it, right? None of that. So the addition of this PayPal stablecoin is valuable because what it's actually doing is it's bringing their users' account balances on chain and showing that this transparency that's been sort of native to the blockchain Web3 ecosystem is valuable in the real world for consumer confidence and for efficiency within their company and maybe even accounting, right? So I think I'm looking forward to sort of seeing how all of that plays out. Everything else is an added benefit to me.
So there was one thing that I wanted to add there, and it really comes down to the improvement for like the infrastructure for PayPal, right? I've used PayPal since I was like 12 years old, so I'm very familiar with their policies and how clandestine and wishy-washy they can be at the same time, where they can just take your money and they're like, yep, sorry, we don't deal with digital assets. For example, when I was in college, I was selling, Dota 2 skins and lost some money because of that, because they basically said we don't facilitate that. But the interesting thing that you said about the transparency and on the blockchain, initially I was going to say, oh, like this is a precursor to PayPal testing these payment rails for their own uses, for their own business, like not just for as a service, but actually as their own infrastructure for their own backend, not for their customers' accounts per se, but for the entire infrastructure that the company is built on. But then I realized, oh, you have the transparency problem of, PayPal probably doesn't want to show everybody how much money is in their bank account at all times, like we do in crypto, because that's valuable and that's important, but that's not how PayPal's built. And then I was thinking, oh, well, the next obvious solution is to have a layer of privacy involved and to be able to obfuscate and separate, the activity from the individuals. And what you made me realize is that I want to go on chain and see, who holds the most PayPal USD, for example, because like I should be able to see that on Etherscan. But yeah, I mean, things like Galactica and doing privacy-based solutions and separating user identities from user activity, that it seems like a critical stepping stone that PayPal's missing at this point. That would require, significant more understanding, but it would really, really help them, get with the times, so to speak. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm basically bullish on anything that involves even like doesn't matter who it is, just getting onboarded onto the crypto rails, like the back end. And then as far as like the maintaining user sovereignty and privacy and all this stuff that we care about, like the 1 to 5% of people care about, I want to make sure that that remains an option for people. Okay, as long as we can maintain that as an option, I'm happy. We've got to make sure that that stays. Sorry, Ontology, you have your hand up, please.
Yeah, I was actually snickering a little bit. I believe it was RHI Chain, excuse me, who was speaking, and forgive me for not remembering the name, person behind the account. But I was snickering a little bit because you were saying that, well, maybe PayPal is not going to want to know how much money they have in certain wallets, and there's that desire for privacy, right? But like when things are on chain, it's like fully transparent. Like there is no privacy. This idea of anonymity is a bit silly because everything is there as a public ledger. People can see what your transactions are, what it is that you buy, hold, etc. Even the relationship between wallets. And when you think about like these institutions coming in and playing in our playground that we've been playing in for years, they're seeing some of those same challenges. And for me, one of the things that I thought was incredibly useful and valuable and necessary was Tornado Cash. as a way to obfuscate, the transactions between wallets. Because say I am paid in crypto by an institution, and I want to degen into, a project, into an NFT, whatever. I mean, I know that people can see my wallets, but I don't want people to like ape into things like, oh, Humpty, he's an influencer. Like that's an influential decision. That's a signal. That I should follow suit. It's like, no, like this is just me being, a degenerate and jumping into something. Uh, or if that performs well, say I don't necessarily want people to know what my net worth is. Like, so there's something to be said about like privacy and having a need for that for things that are completely legitimate and legal. And it'll be interesting to see those conversations evolve too as these institutions come in play. And it's like, oh, what you know what? You're right. We need to develop, privacy systems. Or it's like, well, we do have those privacy systems. We need to start using those and implementing those so that, we can operate again legally, but at the same time in a way that provides a level of security and privacy. Oh, a lot of hands. that sparked some fire.
Clearly, yeah.
I mean,
Okay, I think we had Hoss first. Go.
yeah, I always say that. I mean, honestly, when I first got into crypto, one of the first blockchains that resonated with me, it's just like how my lifestyle, my background's in accounting and finance, governmental work, and basically been in business my entire life. And yeah, I mean, privacy is the most important part of that, because right now, how it's currently constructed for majority of blockchains, it's not every blockchain, but yeah, everything's just on a ledger where everyone can see it. It's kind of dangerously, if you have a good net worth, or maybe you got lucky and got into an NFT project that blew up and went really, now this particular NFT is worth, say 20 ETH or something. Everything's there, and it's just kind of unsafe. So I'm always a big fan of like teams and blockchains and projects that are working on solutions for privacy. Like one of them is a Secret Network, which is an L1 and Cosmos, and it's cool because it's privacy by default. So when you're doing things within the Secret Network, it's not transparent, but you can also release your records, which is more suitable for like say like a Larry Fink or whatever, because it's competitive nature. Like if I was a hedge fund, I wouldn't want to use blockchain right now because everything's just there. So all my competitors can just, oh, well, Larry, like I'm doing this and that, and they could just copy and paste, like you just stated. People might just ape into things because you're doing it. And but it's cool with Secret is at the end of the quarter, you can release your records and say, hey, this is what we did for quarter one, blah, blah, blah. Here's our records. You can use it for tax purposes and things of that nature. And yeah, I mean, it's so overlooked. I mean, I think privacy by default should be kind of the way it is, because like if you and I, Humpty, were like good friends and we went to high school together, and then I've been out of high school for a long time, but I see my buddies and I'm like, hey, we'll go to the baseball game, or this, I'm a Steeler fan. We'll go to the Steeler game, and I'll get the beers for you. And I use crypto, and they find out what the my wallet address is or whatever. They could just like follow every single transaction I've ever done, say, oh, he's worth this much or that. It's insane. And like you said, we've been doing this for years, and it's kind of just like acceptable, but it's not realistic. No one from the TradFi world would use those type of tooling because it just doesn't make any sense for them, because it's such a competitive market, and it's unsafe too. Like, you go to a store and you swipe, you use crypto, and then that cashier can see like all your transactions that you've ever done. So like the only solution, except for like say like Secret right now, is like you create like a million wallets, right? And every wallet's a new wallet, and then you got to go mess around with that stuff, and it just doesn't make any sense. So I'm always looking forward to teams that are kind of building that privacy by default solution for different things that we do in this space and in the future here. So that's I just wanted to add that. It's a very good point though.
100%, man. Privacy is a right, as far as I'm concerned. Tyree, you have your hand up, please.
Yeah, so I guess I wanted to just add here. I wanted to add a couple of things, right? So I do think that the need for privacy by default is really valuable. It's really valuable and should be expected in the Web3 space. But real world people borderline don't care about privacy at all in terms of their data. And so when we go out here and we sort of get on our soapbox and talk about privacy as something that's really important to us in this space, we have to understand that we're talking to people that, regularly give up their information all the time, right? Like you don't have privacy in your bank account. If you connect your bank account, to almost any app, right, and you use, Plaid to connect your bank account to, Venmo or something like that, Plaid has already taken all of your consumer data and sold it to every single company in the country, right? So people don't have privacy right now. People give up their privacy in order to access products, and especially with things like Venmo and Cash App and all of these other sort of payment services, it's directly their financial information, personal information that they're giving up there, right? You apply for a loan or a credit card, any of these things, you're literally just shipping all of your data abroad. So that's problematic. Now, I also see this as a place where there's an opportunity for us, right? So in Web3, one of the things that we have to do is think about this transaction, this financial data as being the value that it is, and helping people harness and unlock the value of that for themselves rather than having that sort of middleman that's coming along and brokering and selling their data for them, right? So I sat down at a conference about 6 months ago, and I had two different major ad companies in the US sit down with me and say, well, we want to know how we can use Web3 data to sell more Domino's, to sell more Pepsi. Do you have any information on that? And we have to understand that there's like this revenue stream for Web3 that could be like pouring into the space from advertisers, that could be, providing income to the users inside of these networks. And we're not quite at the maturity yet where we have a unified vision on how to tap into that resource, and it's something that we do need to work together to do. E-commerce is a big game, and I think PayPal is going to be the beginning of looking at how this data is now accessed for advertising. But unfortunately, in the case of PayPal, I do think that money is all going to go to PayPal, right? So it would be nice if we could get more of that action happening grassroots inside of the Web3 space. Yeah, so that's sort of my outlook on it.
Some good points there. I have a question for you, but first I want to reset the room, guys. We have quite a few more listeners in here who have joined new. I'd very much really appreciate it if you could jump into the comments section below and give us a like on the retweet. We are trying to provide as much value and as much education as we possibly can on this show with some amazing guests, some great insights. So please, if you enjoy the value we're giving, just give us a like and a retweet. Get that show out to more people. So Tyree, the one thing I wanted to question on that was that, well, not question, I suppose it's more of a statement. But like, I think there's a bit of a difference between having the average person giving away some nebulous piece of data, which they are not entirely sure the value of, to a completely, in the Web2 world at least, in the traditional world, a trusted entity. And then that same average person suddenly being placed in a blockchain environment in which their every single financial transaction and their financial holdings are suddenly transparent. I think there's a difference there. I mean, I don't know what you think of that.
It's interesting because you use the word trusted entity, and I just frankly disagree with you. I think that our idea of trusted entities is all based around brand names. It's based around again, this top-down capitalism where you're meant to believe that you can trust Facebook with this seemingly benign data. And so you go into Facebook and you put your entire life into a platform, and then they ship it around the world, right? And everybody in their moms is using your data to build their AI models or build their ad algorithms, right? So, all of these trusted capitalist brands are only trusted because of their brand names. Over and over again, we've seen them abuse that trust and ultimately betray their users who they've built their businesses on the backs of, right? So, So that's sort of my opinion on it. I know it's hot take, kind of controversial, but from my
That's not really a hot take from my perspective, mate. Just so you're aware, I completely agree with you. I just wanted to make sure I provide the other side. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, look, I again, in privacy in Web3 is definitely. All I'm saying here is that it's a hard sell, right? We have to think about how do we actually deliver the benefit to the next million users, billion users, right? How do we tell them that privacy is the way to go? Because selling them the technology as like, okay, use this platform because your data is encrypted or because it's private is not the only selling point, right? We have to find a benefit that resonates with the audience so that they can actually adopt something that they understand.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I was going to say, and Facebook is a great example because, people trust things based on their own experience and based on the experience of people who they've talked to, but 95% is based on their own experience. And until something bad happens, I would say most people are fairly trusting. That's a huge generalization, and I'm sure we'll get flack for it, or I'll take flack for it. I don't care. I believe it. That being said, we are at the stage now where most people who are above 25, 26, 27, like millennials, have experienced some large data breach or some, bastardization of their rights, basically. And so now we have an opinion. It's super interesting, though, to see people younger than millennials just totally not disregard, because that would imply that they don't have an opinion, but to willingly engage with data collection platforms like TikTok, where they are very aware of what's going on and they openly joke about, I'll give them my data. Like, I don't care. It's not useful to me. It's not valuable to me. And they're just totally disregarding. Well, I guess I wasn't trying to say that, but it's an interesting choice that we're seeing people make time and time again. And until people get burned, they just don't learn that fire is hot. And it's
That's
really
something
sad.
that's actually occurred quite like in waves, I suppose. Like at the beginning of when the web came into being, we had every single, like my mother, my father, they were terrified of the internet. They were terrified of putting their information into any website. They didn't know where it was going. They had no idea. They cared. But through saturation, through time and saturation, people have just stopped, right?
Yeah, and familiarity. I mean, I understand where you're coming from when you're saying, top-down capitalism, et cetera. I think capitalism by design is a predatory system. It works extremely well. It doesn't mean it is morally or net good for the world. I mean, I would argue it is net good for the world, but that's not the debate we're going to have today. But yeah, like there's substantial trade-offs that happen in a capitalistic society, and the current trade-offs that we're making is that we get stuff for free, and the price that we pay is our data. So it's up to us as stewards of, this digital landscape where we've been burned, we've had experiences that have been formative, and we are working with projects that enable us to build a better future, or at least offer an alternative for this freemium or, pay with your data experience. So the only reason that's the way it is because that's just the way that it is. It doesn't mean that's the only way it can be. It just means that's the way that most people engage with the digital world right now.
100%, John. So let me just throw a spanner in the works here. How about we simply ask the question, what does owning your data actually mean to you? Perhaps we'll go with Hoss first, just to get an answer, and then we'll go around the panel and just kind of get an answer to that.
I guess owning my own data is kind of like having my own keys to my data in a sense, where if it is going to be used, I should get some sort of royalty on it. And also, I should be able to control that. So if I want to release like for anything, there's been so many breaches, even with like governments, like there's been breaches to local municipality databases. And then you have like hacking groups that find a backdoor into a system, and then they're like doing, they're holding like a local government hostage, and or like, or companies and all this other stuff. And maybe it should be no one's right anytime you fill out applications that they want to know your social security number too. That's like, you want to talk about, the older generations would never give that up regardless, unless it was like an actual governmental documentation. Now it's like you sign up for, anything, they want your social security number. It's like, for what, and so like controlling my own data, obviously, and being able to say, you know what, I opt into this, I know what you're going to do with my data, but also in return, for taking my data, I want, some sort of monetary value from that. And yeah, the whole free to earn, free to play type thing is, it's not free. They're using your data and they're selling it and making astronomical amounts of money off of your data. So I guess that would be kind of my thing. But privacy by default, I'm all about optionality. So whether you're a kid that's he doesn't know any better or whatever, and you don't care, you're going to tweet out and discriminate against yourself and put out derogatory things that probably won't look good for maybe a future employer one day, or if you're someone that's like a boomer that wants to partake in the internet but not have every single piece of data just utilized and taken and sold on the market. I think it should be all about options. That's what owning my own data kind of means to me.
It's a good take, man. It's a good take. Humpty, what do you think? What does owning your data mean to you?
Yeah, that's a hard question, right? Because I mean, if you're talking about just Web3 at large being kind of like this data playground, for lack of a better word, where you have just so much data being produced, just having a Web3 wallet doesn't necessarily entitle you to data privacy, to data ownership, right? Firstly, and data privacy goes along with that. So I think the question then is, how can we provide individuals with the ability to create data that is private, that they own, and they can use however they please, whether that is for monetizing it, sure, or that is just to prove, certain attributes of yourself, whether it's your identity and in a traditional government, issued credential, or some other institutional credential, or even credentials that you generate yourself or your job generates for you. I think that's really how we can provide data ownership and data sovereignty to people. And for that, I think there's a few projects, Ontology included, who are building the technology, or should I say, that are building with those Lego blocks, right, of self-sovereign identity, and self-sovereign data, such as DIDs and VCs, for instance, decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials, for those in the audience who aren't familiar, where you can generate private data, which then is verifiable and provable, and again, usable in a variety of contexts, and composable, more interestingly. And for me, at least personally, I like the idea of composable data, but again, in a way that is respects the ownership of that data from the person who has created that. So yeah, I think I'm going on a tangent here, so I'm going to try to like dig myself out of the hole that I dug myself into right now. But really, it's a matter of creating the tools, using the tools, and developing the applications for people to be able to create private data that they can own, and then use that in a variety of ways, and more interestingly, in fun and interesting ways. I'll just shout out and shill just a bit. Last year, I was leading the product team at Ontology in this new product that we built called Orange Protocol, and we basically took the idea of like private data, and we used it to be able to provide users with their own credentials that unlock special, unique experiences that were provided by their communities, that were provided by the protocols they chose to use. Where based on certain actions that you took in a community, based on information that you accumulated over time, you're able to generate these private proofs, which then are usable to unlock new credentials that give you access to these new experiences. So data ownership really is a matter of also creating applications that benefit the user and are fun as well. Hopefully there's an answer in there somewhere. I know I tend to go into tangents.
But mate, I know the feeling. I know the feeling when you're trying to create you're trying to create a protocol that is so like holistic in nature. It just covers so many aspects of I don't know, I guess humanity and society, even above and beyond finance. You get lost in it. You just get lost. But yeah, I mean, from Galactica's perspective, we're seemingly doing something quite similar, I suppose, to Orange. Then, in that case, if that's my understanding, in that we have a reputation framework, we have a ZK KYC framework, so we have identity, we have so you can have your identity on chain. You can actually get that identity KYC'd off chain privately, and then have that notarized on chain, and then prove yourself on chain to any entity that you want, be that DEX, be that DAO, doesn't matter what it is. You can prove yourself to these entities who you are without actually giving away any information whatsoever. So maintaining sovereignty of your data, maintaining sovereign custody of your data as well. We're actually utilizing the new MetaMask snaps that are coming out at the end of the year. So we've created our own snap extension. We're actually holding our zero knowledge proofs in that extension. So you actually, instead of just holding your assets, you'll also be able to hold your data within your wallet as well. And that's, I think that's huge. I think that's great, and I can't wait until that extension comes out. But yeah, and obviously the reputation framework just adds on to that and allows this level of micromanagement of your interactions on chain that you just never had before in a simple pseudonymous financial blockchain. So yeah, I think a lot of us on the panel right now are working towards the same kind of ends in different ways. And I'm really happy to see the kind of things that we're coming out with. Tyree, I really want to hear from you, man. Please go on.
Yeah, so I want to take this question. What is owning data to me in sort of two different directions, right? So first, I want to take on the fact that owning our data right now is in part reclaiming our data, right? This is massive sort of reclamation that needs to happen right now, where we are able to take our data back from Instagram, Facebook, and Amazon, and all these different people, and download them and own them underneath maybe our own SSID, right? So I think that that's kind of one piece of the puzzle that needs to be solved. And then looking at it from sort of the AI specific side of things, here we have these beautiful data products that are being built all over the world right now that are generating record revenues, right, all over the world, and there's an opportunity here for not a royalty free sort of exchange of data, but in fact like a royalty bearing in data. So I really think that there's an untapped opportunity for something I like to call DataFi, right, where we're actually able to take back and own our data, and then invest our data into protocols that we believe in to enrich those and share in the revenue of those things, right? So when I think of how the data economy works right now, we sacrifice our data, we give it up, it goes to a broker profits off of these big data lakes full of user data. They don't care what's in it. Maybe they'll get out there and clean it and sanitize it, but for the most part, they're going out there and they're just selling this data to the highest bidder over and over again. And we need a better way to be able to invest our data to the people that we want to and trust, And so I think that there is a huge opportunity here in the AI economy specifically, looking for these sort of more open source, more transparent AI builders and saying, this is somebody that I'm okay with giving my data to. Now, to kind of zoom out on this issue, right now I'm talking about sort of consumer data and things like that, and obviously we've discussed a little bit on the identity side, but even with proprietary data, this ends up being a really big issue. I've been having a conversation for the past 3 months, once a week for the past 3 months, with an organization out of Texas called Texans for the Arts. This organization represents policy does advocacy work in Texas for artistic institutions to help develop policy for the next legislative session. The next session, they are focused entirely on how to protect their institutions from this AI wave and enforcing laws in Texas that are going to require that all of these institutions are opting in. So when we look at sort of an institution like Dallas Museum of Arts, who has 24,000, pieces of artwork in their collection, and they own that, right? They currently license that data on Getty Images. For them, it ends up being something that really affects their bottom line. So when you have Getty Images out there charging $400 per image for somebody to go and then scrape that and use it to train their AI model, it ends up not being economical. And so what people do is they just scrape it and they say, I'm not going to do that, right? And so blockchain really enables us to track these royalties downstream. And this is where I see the opportunity to really go above and beyond here, right? Is bringing this data on chain, allowing people to opt into using it for products that are being monetized on chain, and then tracking the royalties all the way through that pipeline from payment for that services all the way back to the people that have contributed that data. And that's what kind of a healthy data economy looks like to me. And it's something that I'm really passionate about achieving in the next few years.
That's a very good take, mate. And a lot of everything that you said really isn't possible anywhere else except blockchain, I imagine. Just before we carry on with that conversation, I do want to reset the room just again. We've got, again, lots of new listeners, and I'm really happy to see it. How you doing? You're listening to Into the Cypher State. This is the premier public broadcast of Galactica Network. And we're up here talking with Cosmos Hoss, Humpty from Ontology. We've got Tyree from Orachain. And we've got John from our BD team over at Galactica Network. We've got some amazing insights, amazing conversation going on here. So if you would give us a moment of your time, please just jump down to the right-hand side, bottom right-hand side of your screen, and give us a like and a retweet on the space. We'd really appreciate it. So yeah, Tyree, on the AI front, I mean, you know what? Actually, I think what we'll do first, we'll get John's take on what do you think owning your data actually means, and then we'll carry on.
Yeah, thanks. Because I actually got to jump in like 6 minutes, but I really do want to put this out there, which is nobody knows really what it means yet. Is my point, because we don't have it. Like, we have ideas, we have attempts, we have platforms that are trying to do these things, but one of the things that's required with new things is just to try new things. And it's going to take time for us to figure out, what does this mean? What do people care about? What are people willing to pay for? What are they willing to sell? What are they not willing to sell? And so I think the most important thing for me to say in what does owning your data mean? My first thought was, okay, so it means one of two things. One, it means that either I can get paid when my data is used, or two, I can prevent other people from extracting value from my data. So just tying value in data was sort of my basic way of thinking about it. But then as I thought about it more, I realized, well, that's really, really limited, right? Because like for training, a great example is training large language models. If you have posted on twitter.com or whatever we're calling it now, over the past 10 years, it is, and your tweets are not private, it's undoubted that you have been inadvertently swept up in the scraping of the website for training of data. How would we even, go about getting compensated for that? I don't know, but those are questions that we have to explore. And the only way we can explore them is if we have the opportunity to own our data and the opportunity to engage with companies that are trying to hoover up all of our data. But there's just so much that's to be determined, to be defined, to be explored, frankly. And I think that, even in 6 months to 18 months, we're going to have a totally different understanding, or at least around the wider conversation around this. I feel like, us up on the panel, we have a pretty good idea of how we feel about our data and what we are okay with and not okay with. But like we said earlier, the general public just does not give a flying F about it, because they have like tangible problems like affording food, gas, rent, and data is just this intangible, ephemeral thing that, people tell them it's worth stuff, and people are definitely making money, but I don't know about it, and I don't have any problems with these centralized data places like Facebook or Microsoft or Amazon, and it works for me, and it's fine. I have bigger problems on my plate. So I genuinely don't know where it's going to be in 18 months, but I do know that it's going to be radically different, because it just takes time for people to be exposed to this. And then to be converted is a really large task when you look at all the other stuff that people have in their lives, personally and professionally, emotionally, financially, politically. It's just, I just don't see it being a number one issue for most people unless they are directly impacted by it. And at that point, unfortunately, it's too late for their historical data. So yeah, I'm tuning in, but I do not have any high hopes for the general population to, on their own terms and of their own volition, go out and try and solve a problem that they don't even believe exists.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And it's going to have to be some form of incentive-based thing. I think we've seen this before. We've seen this over and over, obviously, but like in our crypto examples, I guess, we've had the ability to hold our own financial assets for the last decade or so, truly, like financial digital assets in the form of cryptocurrencies or whatever in our wallets. We've been able to do that. We've been able to be self-sovereign in that way, and we have not achieved mass adoption at all. We have not convinced enough people that is an option that's worth taking. And so, now that we're on the cusp of being able to self-sovereignly have custody over our data as well, I think it's going to be equally long or even longer until people realize that it's important. And by the time that they realize it's important, all of their data may well be just simply being, or already is being sold to the highest bidder. Hoss, you have an opinion, please, man?
Yeah, I just reiterate that point. I do tend to agree. Most people probably will never care, but people that will care is what, like the institutions, the governments, the banks, the businesses, and if you can offer solutions for more safety and security, maybe it doesn't even have to be as fast as current Web2 centralized servers and things like that, then I do tend to think that it will be useful. I worked permissionless May of 22, and day 3 was all real world people, people that really aren't into crypto, but maybe they had a law firm or an accounting firm or the medical fields, and they were they would come up. I'd have conversations with them, and it was more about like, hey, like, I don't really know what crypto is. I mean, I do know that it can offer data solutions and security measurements and things like that. So I'm just here trying to learn. And then I would give them like the TLDR on things. And so, for them to be there, and they would say, I just want to be first, I want to get, we understand that this is going to be revolutionary, and it will take time, but we want to be, one of the first to adopt it. And so I think in that aspect. But even said, having said that, like not even just with data, but even in this space in general, it's kind of like we've been putting the cart before the horse, and we're all kind of like test dummies, so to speak. And eventually, the technology will add benefits to businesses and in real life, institutions and things like that. And that's kind of when the space kind of flourishes. But I do think our earlier conversation about ETFs would give a vote of confidence for those type of people to get into the space, because that's where the real money is, not retail anyway. So I do value data solutions, and I think there's plenty of them. Like I know in Cosmos there's a Jackal protocol, which is like a decentralized Dropbox, and it's really really awesome. Like what they're doing, it's actually cheaper than Google Drives and way more secure. Every single piece of data gets its own private key, and it's pretty solid. And I think they're one of many working on different solutions. So, but it's going to be nice to see how kind of slowly but surely starts to eat away at like kind of pre-existing, like I think Tyree said it best, like we're going to reclaim our privacy. And there are people that are younger. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude. People that are younger, they're probably never going to care. Like their whole life has been on the computer anyways, and they post things, and even sometimes I'll see people post some things, and I'm like, man, they really don't care about their reputation, But it is what it is.
Yeah,
Well,
I gotta run. But this was great. I'll chat with you guys later. But looking forward to listening to the recording.
It's great having you up, John. Thanks for coming, man.
yeah, I just wanted to jump in for a quick second and just highlight the fact that one of the problems that we have in for onboarding in the Web3 space is very similar to the issue that we have with the data privacy problem, right? Convincing somebody that Web3 is a better, that DeFi is the way to go, that Web3 is superior to Web2, all of these things, like, pushing the technology in their face is not the way to sell them, right? Ultimately, we need to be able to reach people with products that they want. Now, Haas, you used a really great example, right? These kids want to go on TikTok and whatever little app there is of the day, and dating apps, whatever it might be, and just throw all of their data to the wind and not care about it. But the reason why is because there is some measurable amount of enjoyment or value in their lives that they're getting from the space. And that is something that, and I'm sorry, guys, it's something that we do not do well in Web3. We our enjoyment factor, right, is like 1 out of 10. This is work. For anybody that is getting into the space, it takes you like 40 clicks to get from one network to another. You have to want to be here, and you have to care about the technology, and you have to believe in the technology. And that's a lot to ask of the general public. And so I think that when we talk about how we make data privacy a priority for more people in the real world, we shouldn't really talk about the consumer caring about it at all. What we actually need to do is say, we're building applications with these private primitives backing them up because it's the right thing to do, because it's morally correct, because it allows us to sleep well at night, knowing that we've built something better than they were building things in 2005. And we're putting all of these sort of core values, human rights, as principles within our applications by default, right? And that is really where, for me, we need to build with these things as a given, right? That they're just a part of the app. We have instant finality, awesome. Our data is private, awesome. But what is that actual value and enjoyment factor that we're going to give to our users? And then also, how do we limit that time to value for people that are entering the ecosystem and want to have fun and play with something or use something quickly, right? So that's kind of my perspective on it.
Please, Humpty, go.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little something to what was just said, and then also excuse myself after that because I got to feed my kid. So what was mentioned was, the UX problem in Web3, and that is no secret. I think most of us are well aware of that, and If we're not, then we're lying to ourselves, or what have we used that that we feel is that works so well. But the 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 problem, if we'd like to see it as a problem, is that there's a lot of like protocol level development that's happening and very little application level development. And a lot of the things that were mentioned by several of the panelists is that the generation of people who are internet native, I'll put it that way, because I think, I was born just a little before kind of internet became incredibly popular, and just, you were able to get it in your home. But for those who are internet native, they are not concerning themselves with the protocols on which their favorite applications run. Maybe it's at a hardware level, like, oh, I need to get an iPhone because my favorite app runs on iPhone only, or I need to get an Android because my favorite app runs on Android, which, probably there's a majority more apps that should run on Android, but the Apple app marketplace just dominates the market. But this to say that the focus really should be on developing applications using the technology that exists already to make this experience fun and enjoyable and something that you want to come back to day after day. And one thing that I saw launch just recently, and by the way, this is the Twitter space that I'm going to be hosting on Thursday, and I would like to have Galactica up on our space, is kind of diving into the friend tech experiment, both, I guess, where Base launched its L2. Sure, we can sit here all day and talk about the value proposition of Base, compare that to like other op stack protocols, but instead, let's talk about the way that they drove a lot of attention and value to their network, and that was I'm not gonna say they launched it, because I don't think Base themselves launched it, but a social application was launched on Base, which drove a lot of people to bridge over their ETH to start using it. And more interestingly, they created an experience where you were buying tokens to support your favorite creators or your friends, et cetera, et cetera. That's unimportant. But the importance here is there was an attention to developing an application that was sticky, that was fun, that brought people, that had them inviting their friends. I think that is something that's sorely missing, and that we need to pay a lot of attention to if we really want to start moving the needle forward.
I could not agree more, man. That's one of our primary goals, is to make Galactica Network specifically have a user interface that people actually will want to use. And as far as like the technical level stuff, the protocol level stuff, like I'm not sure that we've ever had the ability to really onboard people. At least I don't think until this kind of like shift from finance towards the social side of blockchain. I think blockchain is at the greatest financial rails we've ever made. I've said this before and I'll say it again. But I think its full potential will only really be tapped when we have people represented on chain, and get that social side on, and get and just really unlock the full blockchain paradigm. Or sorry, Tyree, you're off mic. I don't know if you wanted to put in here.
No. Was I supposed to?
No, sorry, man. I thought you were going to put in there, because you came off mic. It's my bad. My assumption.
No, it's fine. I will say really quick to the example that was given by Ontology a moment ago, that this is something that's been incredibly inspiring to me, as seeing the desire for people to have fun, and to get into something that is a community. It's one of the biggest strengths of the Web3 space in general, has been the ability to rally community around these different products, but the retention has just been so bad, and that's because the product is not there, right? And so social platforms really exciting to me. We have currently a product that's building in our ecosystem that's doing a dating app. I think that is extremely sticky. Using SSID to credential, make sure that you never get catfished, right? Making sure that we're using encrypted file storage for all of your conversations so that those remain private. Things like that. It's like you don't have to talk about the technology. All you have to know is that this will be the quote unquote, hopefully it will be the safest online dating platform for you. And it'll have all these other great AI features built into it, right? So thinking about things that are regular apps that people want to use to communicate with each other now, it all drives back to the same idea that we're building for humans, right? We're not just building for robots. We're not building for developers only. We're building for real people who have real needs in their life. In the case of this Team Cupid, the need that they're attacking is the need for every person on Earth to have love, right? That's great. If you can tap into some desire for people to have human connection, and gaming, I think, has done this really well as well. But this type of connection is where community comes from long term, and I do think that the more ways that this is sort of crystallized into product in the Web3 space, the more opportunity that we'll have to have that sort of wide mainstream adoption.
Yep, and there it is, man. There it is. So I think as far as I think we're going to wrap this up pretty soon, just so everyone is aware, because obviously ontology, I think Humpty has to go soon anyway, so we may as well do a bit of a wrap up. But I will say, as far as adoption goes, there are two kind of ways we can do it. We can either do it as Tyree and as Humpty and as Hoss has already said. We create experiences that are worth having, where the tech just makes things better and you don't know it's there. Or we can do like a WorldCoin, and we can just do an airdrop to people and get 2 million people on board who give them like a month's worth of their wages in their country, and then never see them again. Hoss, you have your hand up, mate, before we close up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Humpty. So, do you do like a regular Twitter space at a certain date and time?
Yeah. So, with this ontology account, I host a Twitter space every Thursday. I missed last week because I was on holiday, but the space that you all listened to was on the Thursdays at I think it's 2000 UTC, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, go check out the ontology Twitter account. You can we'll be tweeting that out shortly. I'm just trying to finalize the topic and panelists. I'm a little behind because I just got back from holiday, but yeah, I want to touch on the Friend Tech experiment as a mobilizer for people to use the blockchain, but also to talk about identity, because that's certainly a topic of choice for ontology. So please do join us. I hope you will join us.
I'll be there, man. I'll be there
And
personally.
Last question for you before you go. Are you guys on Near? What chain are you on? Are you your own chain, or you build on something? I apologize.
Yeah, so ontology, no worries, man. Ontology is its own chain. That was one of its first development. But ontology also has quite a few different projects under its belt. So it's kind of like a branded house of brands, I should say. So they have a DeFi protocol. They have, their DID stack. Like I said, I was on the team that helped to build the reputation credentialing platform last year. So quite a few things, and all of these things operate on different blockchains. Like Orange, we launched on BNB chain, Polygon, Ethereum. So yeah, we play nice with a lot of the different ecosystems out there.
Nice, thank you.
Amazing. Tyree, I don't know if you have any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up.
Yeah, no final thoughts, everybody. We hold a weekly Twitter space on Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. It's 1500 UTC. Everybody's more than welcome to join that space. We always get a ton of awesome guests in there, hosted by Cosmos Haas, #1 influencer in Cosmos. Let's go. If anybody is interested in learning more about Arai Chain and digging into our ecosystem, double click on the PFP and follow us and join the community. If you have any questions for us, we're always here. I barely sleep. Cosmos Haas is our faithful community manager these days and has been digging in and grinding. So, we're always here to answer questions and direct you. And up at the top there, you're going to see a release that we just announced today, which is a platform called AI Write. I highly recommend everybody checking it out. We are really transforming that platform to be an aggregator of all of the big generative AI models from just all over the world and bringing them into one place. So you don't have to go and pay a subscription to go and use Midjourney one time or something. You can go in and try all of these models and play around with them, kind of pay as you go. But what's really cool about it is that we are dealing with the creatorship of AI generated content and actually memorializing that on chain. So that is something that is really exciting to me. It opens the door for licensing of AI generated content for commercial use. And yeah, so I'm really stoked on that. Big thank you to Galactica for always having us. I really appreciate it. Pleasure to meet you, Humpty, over at Ontology. Super stoked. Definitely will be stopping by your spaces in the near future. So yeah, cheers, everybody.
Firstly, thank you, Tyree. Thank you for coming up. Secondly, yes, everyone should jump on Ontology Spaces. They were fantastic. It's what led to this space here, and we'll be doing a lot more with them in the future, I'm sure. And thirdly, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, races, and creeds, please like the space and retweet it just before we leave. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a random act of kindness. It costs you $0. It's free, and we appreciate it. And thank you for everyone that tuned in. Thank you for everyone that listens to the recording. And take pride in yourself that you're always grinding, especially in the bear market. So take care, everyone. Cheers.
100%, guys. Thank you, guys, for everyone for coming. Thank you to all of our speakers. You've been amazing. We've had some great insights, some incredible takes. Frankly, I think an hour-long space or an hour and 20-minute space is never enough to get through a topic like this. So I'm very happy we'll be speaking again at some point soon. Check the pinned tweets. There's been a lot of them today. If you would like to check out Galactica, what we're up to, the very first pinned tweet will be our Cypher State campaign. You can jump into our Discord and learn more how you can earn your Galactica passport just with your social contributions. You do not need to pay anything. It's all about people with us, and that's one of the reasons why we're also doing these spaces. We want to get to know everyone. We want to make sure that we're out there socially rather than just asking for money all the time, like every other project seemingly does. Yeah, please check out the pinned tweets from everyone. Please make sure you check out the profiles of everyone who is on stage right now. So we've got Tyree behind the Arai Chain profile. We got Humpty behind the Ontology profile. And just throw a like to Cosmos Haas because he's a brother and we love him. Don't forget to drop a like and a retweet before you leave the space. Thank you very much for coming. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday for the very next episode of Into the Cypher State. And guys, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for coming.